So the next step in my skink rack project is going to be to build the legs and the rails that the tubs would slide on. And I need to do a little bit of math. So I'm going to explain my math here of what I did. I want my top shelf here to be at 60 inches. So that's about giving me line of sight where I can still look into the tub and it's not too high. I can pull them out. It's at head level. I don't really want it to be higher than that. So how I came up with breaking this down was you have the shelf, which for me is 1.5 inches. I want a little bit of a gap between the tub and the shelf because the tubs with the rail that's on there, these screws stick out and you don't want that rubbing on the wire mesh shelf. So I want a gap between there. So I have my shelves are 1.5 inches deep. I want about a 1/2 inch gap. And then the tub itself is about 8 inches. And then a dome light that will sit below. So the top one, the dome light will be on top. I don't care about that. But to give enough space between these two shelves, the dome light's about 10 inches. But it will sit down in this frame a little bit. So there will be a gap. It's about 1.5 inch gap. So altogether from the shelf to the next shelf is 21.5 inches. And then do that on the next one. I'm doing 3 tubs. So the next one, 1.5 inch shelf, 1/2 inch gap, 8 inch tub, about 1.5 inch gap between the light and the tub, 10 inches for the light again, gives you 21.5 again. Now for the final one, we have the shelf, 1.5 inches, gap, 1/2 inch, 8 inches for the tub, but I want there to be room off the floor, so I'm not bending down and scraping it on the floor and save my back. So leave about 7 inches for that. So altogether the tub plus this gap is 10. So that would be 43, 53. So, and then I just add 7 inches to make it 60 altogether. So that's how I got 60 inches for the legs. Now I am putting these casters on the legs. So one thing, I'm using 1x4s. So these are 1x4s here. And that's not enough to screw this into. So I am going to put another block of wood next to there. And again, I've got pretty much that much space to deal with, 15 inches to deal with. So I don't need to be that tall. I mean, I just need a block of wood here that I can drill between and screw on the legs. So this part of the wheel will be the bottom. And this is 2.5 inches. So 60 minus the 2.5 inches gives me my 57.5 inch that I will need to cut my legs at. Now the rails, you have your shelf with the wire. So this is my shelf. You have some type of gap in there again, and then my tub. So my shelf, when I designed these, I left 3/4 inch between the tub and the shelf. So the tub actually sits a little bit back from here between. So I've got 3/4 inch on either side that I left space for. And then from the tub out, when you look down here, from this out is about 1/2 inch. Now you gotta remember to measure these bumps, not from the flat part. So from this bump to this ridge is basically 1/2 inch. So altogether I need to make my rails 1.25 inches. So that will give my rail 1.25 inches out from the tub to be even with the shelf above it so that I can screw my legs into both pieces. It really doesn't matter how far down those rails go. It just really matters that this is only 1.25 inches coming out. This could be, you know, a bigger piece of wood, whatever you want to do. So again, for my legs, I bought 1x4s, which are actually 3.5 inches wide, 3/4 inches thick. Those are going to be my legs. Now I bought 10-foot boards from my local big box store that I'm going to cut to, I'll get 2 pieces out of each board. It was cheaper than buying multiple 8-foot boards and wasting some. I do have an extra board to use those extra pieces for the caster, so I'm okay there. And as you can see, these aren't really 10 foot, they're a little bit more than 10 foot. So I'll cut off a little bit of the ends to square them up on the miter saw and just make a cut. Okay, and there we have it. 2 legs are done, so just 6 more pairs to go, or 6 more legs to go, I should say. They're ready for some light sanding and some paint, and then we're done with that. So I'll go ahead and cut the rest of those now. Okay, now that I got my rails cut and my legs cut to length, the next thing I need to do is paint. But before painting, I wanted to attach this block to the bottom of the legs, and this is what my casters are going to screw in, so the wheel will sit in between these. So to give it enough depth here, I'm going to just glue this block down, clamp it with one of my bandy clamps here, and then just put 4 screws in on this side, flip it over, and put 3 screws on the other side. And that should be plenty. For screws, I'm going to use these self-tapping Spax construction screws. This is 1.5 inches thick, so I'm using 1 1/4, and that should be plenty. That way I don't have to drill either. But I wanted to put these on before I painted them, otherwise it'll look odd with this block not being painted. So I'll get them all glued and screwed, and then I'll be able to paint one side of the legs and the rails. So to screw these on, I'm just going to dump some glue. See if my glue bottle will work. Of course not. So to put these together, I'm just going to spread some glue out on here. Alright, once glued, I'll clamp it together.
Have you ever had one of those days? Yeah, that would be today.
Or pretend to. Okay, now that that's glued, I'm going to let that dry. I'll paint it, but this should be good. And then later on, I will drill the hole to put the caster in. Okay, now that my legs and rails are painted and ready to go, I got both sides. I got the little supporting blocks here for the casters. The next step is to add these T-nuts. Now, I've never used wheels like this, but the theory is you drill a hole into your block of wood here. You tap in this T-nut, which has threads in it, and then you can thread your wheel. So this is what it should look like in the end. Now it's got this little ring on here, so you can adjust the size. One wrong way there. And you can see this will come down and drill the post out. So the way I measured this is I wanted the total length of the leg plus the wheel to be 60 inches, and that means this is totally screwed in. Now if my floor is uneven and I need one leg to be longer than the other, you can just twist this and add extension in there to level it out. Being it's my basement floor where these will go on, I'm not sure how that will work. So the next step for me is to go ahead and drill these holes and put in the T-nuts. Now I've marked my drill bit as far as I want to go. The length on these gray wheels is different than the length on the black wheels that I'm using for the back. So I just made it to the depth of the greatest one. It shouldn't matter if the hole goes farther in than the post of the wheel. It should still work. Now for this, I'm just line of sight adding to where I think the middle is. I don't think it really matters where it goes, but I'll go into where that mark is. There we go. Hole is drilled. Just a little sawdust out of the way. And the trick here is trying to hold that nut without smashing your fingers. There we go. And now we can just screw the wheel in here. Now again, there's bearings in here, so just turning the wheel doesn't screw it in. You actually have to turn this little plate right here and twist it in, and your wheel's on. I'm going to take the wheels off just so that I can put together the rest of the build without the wheels on there, and then when I'm done, finally I will add the wheels to the rack. So for now, I'll remove those. So next step for me is I need to add the wheels to all the legs.